Yes, sir, ladies and gents, what is going on? We are back in full effect, rooted in sports. So happy to be with you guys tonight. You're gonna get just me today. You know what I'm saying? I won't be before you long, but obviously, we just had week one of the 2023 NFL season kickoff. Ending with tonight's game between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. Whenever they get it in, I hear some inclement weather up that way, so whenever they get it in. But I would be remiss if I didn't come on and just give a few of my thoughts about what I seen um specifically yesterday. So um my bad. Phone acting crazy next to me. But yeah, so we're gonna get into a little NFL week one coverage. I'm gonna give you a few of my thoughts about some of the things that occurred yesterday. It's gonna be a great show, real quick. Won't be before you long, but yeah, I'm gonna give you, who I thought impressed me, who was a bit disappointing to me. A couple surprises. There were definitely some surprise outcomes in the league, so I'm gonna hit on that and my week two predictions. So thanks to you guys for tuning in, and let's get to the intro. And just like that, we are back. Once again, it's such a pleasure to be in front of you guys tonight. And yeah, we most definitely gonna go ahead and get into it here. But first, let me go on and take a sip of my adult beverage. The nectar of gods. All right, so here we go. Most impressive team week one. I'm gonna throw out a couple teams. Um, there were a few teams that I thought could have been the most impressive, but for me, I think I'm going to have to go with the San Francisco 49ers. They defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday, 30-7. And to see this game, you would have seen basically a football team in the Pittsburgh Steelers that got flat out kicked in the mouth from the opening kickoff. I mean, San Francisco was the more lively, the more disciplined, the more physical team. They flat out outworked them. And it's a bit surprising considering they were playing a Pittsburgh Steelers team who you just don't normally see that lackluster of a effort from a Mike Tomlin coach team. And I feel like they got defeated on all three stages: offense, defense, and special teams. Brock Purdy, obviously, starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't know why, for some reason, I thought he wouldn't be ready by week one. I don't know why. Kyle Shanahan, I kind of been alluding to it this whole time, but for whatever reason, I thought he wouldn't be ready for week one. Anyway, he goes out there and, I mean, he really doesn't show any ill effects of the elbow injury that knocked him out of the NFC championship game last season. 19 for 29, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just very steady, He has a myriad of weapons around him, He has a slew of guys who can make plays, We from Deebo Samuel to Christian McCaffrey to George Kittle to Brandon Ayuk, and a couple of those guys in McCaffrey and in Ayuk came up really, really huge for him in this game. McCaffrey went for 22 carries and 152 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk had 8 receptions for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I mean, they literally just have guys offensively all over the field that can make plays. I think that they're gonna ask moving forward. They're gonna ask Brock Purdy to not turn the ball over, and B, can he make those 1 or 2 throws that can ultimately keep them on the field or ultimately get them into position where they can win a game where in years past they may not have had that guy who can get them over the hump. Um, Obviously we've seen them get to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and be in position to win said Super Bowl, but ultimately, unfortunately, Jimmy Garoppolo kind of unraveled down the stretch in that game and in the fourth quarter of that Super Bowl and ended up losing it. So they got a guy in Brock Purdy who they are extremely confident in. We're talking about a guy who was the very last pick of the draft last year. So they're getting a starting quarterback on a rookie deal, basically just on a budget. So for them, they have to be thinking that the time is now. This is their window. And I think coming out week 1 against a Pittsburgh Steelers team that I think a lot of people were expecting to really maybe possibly take that next step this season. I know even me, if you guys seen our preseason show a couple weeks ago, I had Pittsburgh as a playoff team. I had them getting in. I had them as a wild card team in the playoffs. So just very disappointed in the Steelers' effort. I was expecting to see a little bit more of the Kenny Pickett, George Pickens connection. We had seen them really link up and connect in the preseason. Pittsburgh's offense looked really good. First team offense looked really good during the preseason, and so I expected to kind of see a little more of that carry over. But I mean, maybe I just need to give credit to San Francisco's defense, which they have one of the best defenses in the league. Pittsburgh, I don't know what to make of this because I'm very disappointed in the effort that they gave in that game. I'm not sure if Pittsburgh hasn't taken that step up that I assumed they would, or if the 49ers are going to be just that complete of a team this entire season. So I'm really looking forward to see how Pittsburgh responds from this. Obviously, Mike Tomlin, he's not going to go for too much of that. So I'm really interested to see how they'll respond from this. Also, something that I noticed in that game, Najee Harris, not only did he not get a ton of touches, but he didn't. It seemed like he didn't play a lot of snaps. Excuse me. Especially down the stretch. I know the game was a little out of hand, but seeing a lot of Jaylen Warren, which we expected. Anybody who has seen this Pittsburgh team, you expected them to sprinkle Jaylen Warren in there, but I guess for me, I thought it'd be maybe 60-40, 65-35 Najee to Jaylen Warren, but I mean, you seem to have seen a lot of Jaylen Warren in this game, so just something to keep an eye on there. With that being said, once again, I have complete and utter faith in Mike Tomlin. We're talking about a coach here who is still yet to have a losing season in his NFL career. So I fully expect them to kind of bounce back from this and give a better effort moving forward. I'm not sure who they play this Sunday coming up. We'll probably go over there once I get to my predictions, and I'll see how I feel from there. But with that being said, definitely the first team that I was probably the most impressed with, I would have to say the 49ers. Moving on, another team that I was impressed with, they eked out a victory down the stretch yesterday against the Los Angeles Chargers, and that'll be the Miami Dolphins. You know what? Let me say this about the Dolphins. You know, I think Tua I'm not going to attempt to say his last name, but y'all know who I'm talking about. I think Tua gets a ton of criticism. And I think that he proved last year, and then he sent the message yesterday that as long as he is healthy, he is a pretty damn good quarterback. We can say what we want about his arm strength. And in all honesty, I probably still have a little questions about his arm strength myself. I mean, he doesn't have a rocket, and you would think with some of the weapons that he has, with those speedsters that he has, you would think that they would prefer a quarterback who can really kind of push the ball down the field in that manner. But I'll be damned, man, if this kid isn't deadly accurate. What he maybe lacks in that power or that velocity that you would want behind a passer, he definitely makes up for in accuracy. I wasn't too sure about Mike McDaniel when he got this job last year, but I think he showed last year and even in yesterday's game that, if nothing else, this offense is going to put up some points. He's right out. He came from San Francisco, right out of that, Kyle Shanahan, lineage or whatnot. If you look at both teams, if you look at their offenses, they kind of mirror each other. Both teams have some really awesome guys in their skill positions. For this Miami Dolphin team, I mean, they literally just have a track team, between Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, who I'll get to in a second, Jalen Waddle. I mean, just speed all over the field. There's been a few questions about the Miami Dolphins offensive line, and I'm looking here just to verify. And okay, so yeah, we've had our questions kind of about this Miami Dolphin offensive line a little bit. And I believe they were missing. I'm not sure if Tariq Armstead played. I believe they were missing their left tackle. Don't quote me on that, though. But either way, they didn't give up a sack yesterday against a Chargers defense that will. I'll get to them in a second. But didn't give up a sack yesterday. Tua went 28 for 45, 466 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. And then Tyreek Hill, who I said I was going to get to, 11 receptions, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Both Dolphins look as advertised. Did all this with no okay, so Armstead didn't play, and no Ramsey as he mentioned. Thanks, Bo. No Ramsey, no Armstead as he mentioned, and yeah, he and like he said, they look just as advertised. Tyreek Hill, man, I remember. This was before. Actually, I think this was before last year. This was his last season with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I remember watching on television. I don't remember the program, but they posed a question as to who's the best deep threat in NFL history. And you know me, I'm a big Randy Moss guy. I automatically just Randy Moss. I don't even think about it. Maybe you throw Megatron in there. I don't even think about it. I wouldn't dare say that Tyreek Hill is on those two guys' levels right now. But as a deep threat, as a playmaker, I mean, my God, man. When Tyreek Hill gets the ball in his hands, it is flat out electric. Like, it's almost to the point that you have to do whatever you can to make sure that he just doesn't catch the ball, which is a lot easier said than done because he has world-class speed, obviously. But when this guy gets the ball in his hands, whether it's on the deep ball, whether he's beating you down the field, or whether, and you see this a lot with Miami, they run these little crossers or whatever. And I mean, when Tyreek Hill gets the ball in his hand, man, you just can't catch this guy. If you let him catch the ball cleanly and cut that corner, just put 6 on the board. And the crazy part is he has a counterpart in Jalen Waddle, who had 4 receptions for 78 yards himself yesterday. He has a counterpart in Jalen Waddle who's almost similar. Like maybe not quite as fast as Tyreek Hill, but I mean, got just right there. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Just speed all over the field, man. Tua's getting these guys the ball in positions to where they can make plays. Once again, Tyreek Hill, 11 receptions, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He said before the season that he wanted to go for 2,000 yards receiving. To my knowledge, I don't believe any receiver has ever caught for 2,000 yards. I believe Cooper Kupp had about 1,900 a couple years ago. I think that's the most. Don't quote me on that. I do remember Cooper Kupp had about 1,900 a couple years ago with his big season. But I mean, man, Tyreek Hill is well on his way. Flipping the script here on the Chargers. I'm you know what? This team is just, they're too talented to be having the outcomes that they seem to repeatedly have, you know. This is a game that they let slip away from them down the stretch. You get too many games like this in a season from this LA Chargers team. It was like this before with, I believe, was it Vance Joseph that was coaching them? I believe it was Vance Joseph. But now, even with Brandon Staley, even more of the same thing. It's just too many times and too often you see them let a game go like this that they probably should have won. Or you see them playing against a team who's maybe not necessarily on their level, but they're playing down to said team's level. They got studs all over on both sides of the ball. You look offensively, they got Justin Herbert. We know what he can do. Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Gerald Everett is a really solid tight end. They drafted Quentin Johnson out of TCU this past season, really solid wide receiver. I mean, they got weapons all over. Defensively, you got Joey Bosa. I had forgot they got Khalil Mack. You got Derwin James back there. I mean, I know I'm probably forgetting some names, but I mean, they got studs all over the field on both sides of the ball. It's no reason why every season consistently they seem to choke games like this. They just drop games it seems like every year now we're saying, okay, hey, this is the Chargers year. This is their year where they take that next step where we see them. I mean, granted, they finally got to the playoffs last year. Every year we're saying, okay, this is the year where they're going to make that deep run. They're going to get to, the AFC championship game. They're going to challenge for the AFC West for the division. And it seems like every year they're disappointing us. And right now they're off to the very same start. There's a lot of money put into these guys on this team, and they're just coming up. They're coming up short. I don't know who they play this week. Obviously, I'm going to make my predictions in a little while, so we'll see what happens. But I tell you what, if it was me, once again, I'm not sure who they play next week. If this Chargers team gets off to a slow start, and it's already been questions on this guy already, but I think they may really need to look into making a move off of Brandon Staley. And when I say making a move, I mean mid-season. And I mean that because at some point, like, when are we going to get the best out of these guys? And we've seen Brandon Staley in game make some poor decisions. You know what I'm saying? So at some point, something's got to give. And then one more team, I had to mention them. We saw them in the Sunday night game. We saw them in the Sunday night game just flat out dismantle the New York Giants. And obviously I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I hate that I'm sitting here having to, discuss these guys. And you know what? It's nothing against the team. I actually have nothing against the team. I'm a resident of Dallas now. I stay in Dallas. Nothing against the team, you know. It's the damn fans, man. Some, not all, because I happen to know a few. Obviously, in our Rooted in Sports, you know, distro got quite a few Dallas Cowboy fans, and they're wonderful guys. Shout out to all those guys. They know who they are. You know, my podcast mate Kenny, Ron, Isaiah, all those guys. Shout out to those guys. Who you seen on the show? But some of these Cowboy fans, man. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. You can't tell them that every year just isn't their year. You know, they just, for whatever reason, they just don't seem to see trends. And I don't know, man. You know, I guess who am I to rob them of their hope, especially with the second half performance that my Chicago Bears put on yesterday. But another topic for another day. Anyway, I have to mention this though, because specifically what I was so impressed with this Dallas Cowboy team, obviously, was that damn defense. We're talking 7 takeaways, I believe it was. 7 takeaways, 7 sacks. Okay. Micah Parsons, if there were two defenders that really stood out for me yesterday, and both of those guys are probably going to be neck and neck as far as Defensive Player of the Year voting goes toward the end of the season. One was in a losing effort, but TJ Watt, if I'm not mistaken, he had 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. The guy's for real. We knew that already. And the other guy is Micah Parsons. Flat out unblockable. Just point blank period. Micah Parsons is flat out unblockable. And then you couple that with the fact that what they showed yesterday is that their defense is deep. Their defense is deep on every level. Zay, what's going on, bro? Mr. Isaiah Kitt from the Isaiah Kitt podcast. Y'all know him. The unofficial host. What's going on, bro? The Dallas Cowboy defense is just so deep on every level. I'm talking from the defensive line to the linebackers to the secondary. They got fucking 3rd and 4th string safeties coming in, blocking punts, getting picks. Like, I don't want to be, I don't want to rain on their parade because it was extremely impressive. And I can't lie, there's that little bit of me that thinks, man, are these guys that phenomenal? Or, man, were the Giants that inept last night? And I guess I woke up this morning and I came to the realization that I have to give credit where credit is due, man. I mean, this is a defense who, even before the season, I think most people, including myself, figured this to be easily a top 3 defense, if not the best defense in the league. And I'd be damned if they didn't make a statement last night to be that. I mean, they were just flying around. Stephon Gilmore got a pick. D-Law flying around. We know what Michael Parsons can do. Doris Armstrong. I mean, they have this team is so deep defensively. And Dan Quinn is making a case for he's arguably making a case as the best defensive coordinator in the league right now. He was just what the doctor ordered for this defense. They got studs all over this defense, and they are going to present a lot of problems for a lot of teams moving forward. They got a big matchup this coming week. I do know who they're playing next week. They got a big matchup with the New York Jets next week. Aaron Rodgers coming in there. We know Aaron Rodgers has been a thorn in their behind most of Aaron Rodgers' career. But with the new team, with the Jets, this Jets team, and it was my biggest apprehension with them, they have some real questions on the O-line. And this Dallas Cowboy team, if you're not solid up front, you simply will not have any success against them. Point blank, period. If you're not solid up front, you will not have any success against this team. Offensively for the Cowboys. So today I've seen a lot of mixed reactions about the Cowboys' offensive output. And part of that is because if you didn't see the game last night, between the special teams and the defense, I believe they were up 14 zip almost before they even, stepped on the field almost. Or they might have had one possession, but they were up 14 zip, basically thanks to a touchdown, from special teams, a block punt took back, and an interception taken back. So as far as this Dallas Cowboy offense goes, I'm going to be honest. I think it's a little bit unfair currently for us to make any real true judgment about them. At the end of the day, I mean, you look at some of these numbers. Dak Prescott didn't blow you away. 13 for 24, just over 50% completion percentage, 143 yards. I mean, they didn't blow you away, but yesterday was a game where that wasn't necessary from him. He just really simply didn't have to turn the ball over. Tony Pollard ran for 14 carries, 70 yards, did have 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had 4 catches for 77 yards. I think his first catch was a big one for like 49 yards or so. But they really didn't need much from the Cowboys offensively because the defense was just so incredible yesterday. So I think that for those that are kind of trying to nitpick and point out and criticize what we've seen from them offensively yesterday, I think that you just have to realize it was one of those games where it just wasn't much asked from them. And so I don't think that it's fair to really pass any judgment as of yet as to what they are offensively because the defense was just that dominant. Moving forward, though, I think that there may be a little more of a test once again coming next week because the Jets have a legit defense coming in there. So I think that we'll be able to get a little bit better of a gauge of where they're at this season offensively next week. And then real quickly on the Giants, I seen them taking a step back. I kind of predicted them taking a step back this season. This was bad. Point blank, period. This was bad, especially seeing how during the offseason they went out and paid Daniel Jones, and I believe he got about $160 million. I'm not sure what the guaranteed money is on that, but I believe he got $160 million for them to come out last night and get from him 15 to 28, 104 yards, 2 interceptions, and I believe, did he lose? No, he didn't lose a fumble, but he recovered both fumbles. I mean, I can't even call that mediocre. That's just downright terrible. Once again, I mean, I have to give credit to the Dallas Cowboys because to watch that game, I mean, Daniel Jones, he was just on the run all game long. He was on the run. They were in his ass all game long. But, I mean, if anyone knows me, they know. If Kenny was here, he would tell you. I jumped off that Daniel Jones bandwagon a long time ago. I think that what you seen last year was you seen a coach and Brian Daboll come in and just really simplify things, really rely heavily on Saquon Barkley, especially with a lot of the injuries that they had at wide receiver. He really relied heavily on Saquon Barkley, and he just made things really easy for Daniel Jones. Really quick, easy reads when he was throwing the ball. Then he would, find ways to get Daniel Jones out in space because he can run with the football. He is a pretty solid guy running out of the backfield. But I think Brian Daboll just found a way and made it work. And they overpaid him. They invested in him. They overpaid him. And I think, these defensive coordinators, they're smart, man. They're going to go back. They're going to watch film. And one thing about the league right now is that those days, I'm going to venture out and say this. Those days of just having a mediocre passing game, a mediocre quarterback, running the football and playing defense, it's only going to get you so far nowadays. Nowadays, these defensive coordinators and these defenders, they're next level. And at some point, you're going to have or you're going to need a quarterback to win a game with his arm. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Once again, it's just 1 week. Hopefully the Giants can recover from this, and maybe next week they'll come out and, possibly give you guys a much better effort. But if I'm a Giants fan, I can't be too thrilled about what I saw yesterday. But those would be some of three of the more impressive teams that I've seen. Moving forward now, and I'm going to try to run through this real quick. Disappointing performances. I'm going to start with this one. The Cleveland Browns over the Cincinnati Bengals 24-3. What happened to Cincinnati? I'm gonna read a stat line for you. 14 of 31, 82 yards, passer rating of 52. 2.6 yards per completion. What if I told you guys that stat line came from the quarterback who now has the richest contract in NFL history? That was Joe Burrow yesterday. A team that a Cincinnati Bengals team that many of us, well, I ain't gonna say us, but many people believe that they're a Super Bowl contender or will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. But to be quite frank, they came out a little lethargic. They came out just not ready. And I want to give the Cleveland Browns defense some credit now. I do think they have a very underrated defense. We know what Myles Garrett can do. I do think they have a very underrated defense. And Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Grant Delpit. They got some guys over there. But once again, this is a team who we put in the upper echelon of teams in the AFC. This Cleveland Browns team, we had so many questions about. In all honesty, Deshaun Watson still really didn't blow anyone away. I mean, looking at the stats here, he threw for 16 for 29, 154, a touchdown and an interception, and he did run for another touchdown. So 2 total touchdowns and an interception. And roughly about almost exactly 200 total yards. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier today, and I'm gonna throw this out there, and then I'm gonna kind of move on. I think that teams and players, especially now since they've taken a preseason game away, since there's only 3 preseason games now, I think that some of these teams might want to start taking these preseason games a little more seriously, because now you come out week 1 and you're starting to get these flat efforts such as these. And there was quite a few of these sort of efforts from a few teams throughout this week 1. That was one of the things that stood out to me. There was a lot of teams that we expect a lot from that I'm going to say flat out just looked rusty. There was a lot of, rusty from a lot of teams. And I think a lot of that has to do with guys just simply not playing during the preseason. Joe Burrow was one of those guys. He got hurt kind of early in training camp. They kind of set him out or whatever, but just so he can be ready for this week 1. But am I worried about the Bengals? No, I'm not, because in all honesty, they tend to come out a little slow to begin the season a lot. This is a team that normally maybe about mid-season or so, you'll see them kind of hit their stride. and then they'll, go ahead and finish strong and ride into the playoffs and make deep runs in the playoffs. So am I worried about this team? No. But was I downright disappointed in their effort? Was I downright shocked about the outcome? Oh, you better believe it. And then I'm going to go to another disappointing performance for me. A very surprising outcome. You couldn't have told me coming into week 1 that the LA Rams were going to go into Seattle and beat them, but not just beat them, really pull away and establish themselves in the second half. We got the LA Rams beating the Seattle Seahawks 30-13. Matthew Stafford was slinging it. He didn't throw for a touchdown, but 24 for 38, 334 yards, which is surprising because Cooper Kupp's on IR. So he's probably going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season. They had 2 guys go over 100 yards receiving. Let me see if you've heard of these names. You got Tutu Atwell, 6 receptions, 119 yards. Lord forgive me if I mess up this young man's name. Puka Nacua. And I probably screwed that all the way up. Please forgive me if I did. But giving credit where it's due. 10 receptions for 119 yards. Once again, there's no Cooper Kupp out there. Allen Robinson, although he had a disappointing season for them last year. No Allen Robinson. You would think no real viable threat, in the passing game. But Matt Stafford, 334 yards. 2 guys go over 100 yards receiving. You look at Seattle, Geno Smith. I'm not gonna just go and jump and say, "Oh, this is the old Geno that we knew. This is the old Geno that we see." I'm not gonna jump on him like that. I'm not. I think he showed us last year that he's a starting quarterback in this league, and he's a really good one, a winning quarterback in this league. So I'm not gonna jump all over him. But this wasn't his best game, and for the team, it wasn't their best game. We didn't necessarily see that fluidity offensively that we kind of seen from them last year. Geno Smith, 16 for 26, 112 yards, and 1 touchdown. Kenneth Walker III ran for 64 yards. DK Metcalf did have a touchdown. But, I mean, if you would have told me coming into week 1, especially this Rams team, a pretty young Rams team now, no Cooper Kupp, if you would have told me that they would go to Seattle week 1 and win this game and win it convincingly, I probably would have, as they say in poker, I would have shoved all my chips my chips to the table. But, and this is a team, mind you, I picked this Seattle Seahawks team to win that division, the NFC West. And judging by their performance and then seeing a San Francisco 49ers performance week 1 against what I assumed would be a better team in the Pittsburgh Steelers, my pick's not looking too good. It's not looking too good. So we'll see what's going on moving forward for both teams. We'll see if, the Rams can kind of build on this. And then we'll also see if the Seahawks can kind of turn it around. And then one more, really quickly, before I get to my predictions, one more game that I just wanted to touch on really quickly. The Las Vegas Raiders over the Denver Broncos, 17-16. Jimmy Garoppolo threw for 20 for 26. Not a bad game, just doing what he does, game managing, 200 yards, 2 tubs, and an interception. Jacoby Myers actually had both touchdown receptions, nine receptions for 81 yards, both touchdown receptions. And I think, speaking of Jacoby Myers, I think you're going to see him have a really solid season next to Devontae Adams there. They got some guys there. Josh Jacobs is still there. They picked up Austin Hooper. He's not Darren Waller, but Austin Hooper is a very serviceable tight end. I think Jacoby Myers could have a really solid year for them. But either way, I wanted to touch on the Broncos. Obviously, biggest head coaching hire of the offseason in Sean Payton. And I think we all thought, all right, Sean Payton's going to come in there. I think personally, I don't think Denver's going to make the playoffs, but I thought that they would be a lot better than they were last year. And I thought that we would see Russell Wilson look closer to what he's looked throughout, the years previous to joining Denver. Yesterday, I felt like what I seen was a coach and a play caller in Sean Payton who either isn't confident that the team as a whole has a grasp of the type of offense that he wants to run, or B, he doesn't have that much trust in Russell Wilson yet. Now, caveat, I am going to throw this out there. Jerry Jeudy was not, in this game. He is their number one receiver. He didn't play. So I will throw that out there. But with that being said, for me, just looking at these guys, they looked just like last season. From what I noticed, it looked like, to me, it kind of looked like they just didn't want to take the cap off of Russell Wilson. I felt like everything was just controlled. Everything was just kind of short passing and dinking and dumping. I know that Sean Payton is big on running the ball. I mean, overall, as a team, they had 22 carries for 94 yards. I mean, about 4 yards a carry. But thus far, 1 week, but the Denver Broncos pretty much looked the same. And to now come up with a loss against a team in the Las Vegas Raiders, who I had picked to finish last in that division, who I thought would be in the Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes, to come out and lose this game, it's just not a good sign. And maybe what this is a sign of is that Sean Payton still has a lot of work to do to turn this Denver Broncos team around. So we'll see what happens next week, but yeah, not looking too great. But those are some of my disappointing performances. And as promised, I'm going to get you guys up out of here, but I do want to quickly run through my predictions for next week. I don't know. I didn't bring my notebook, my pen, nothing. I normally like to write my predictions down, try to keep up with them, but I didn't bring it. But I'm going to try to shoot through these very, 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 very quickly. So here we go. Actually, I'll start with the game tonight. Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers debut. Tonight, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. There's a familiarity factor with them. I don't expect this to be a high-scoring game at all. As a matter of fact, I think the weather might play a part. The weather there is, from reports, it might be a little messy there. So this may be a game where the running games to kind of spring forth. Obviously, we know Buffalo does struggle in the run game. Maybe the Jets can kind of squeak something out there. But ultimately, I just think that right now, I think that the experience of the Buffalo Bills and those guys all being together, I think that that's just going to really show itself and kind of pull through. And I think they'll win a low-scoring affair, a tough one, but I think they'll win it. And as I mentioned before, I'm just not too sure about that New York Jets offensive line. And granted, Von Miller isn't playing tonight, but the Bills can still get after it with Russo and those guys. They can still kind of get after it. So I'm going with the Buffalo Bills tonight. All right, let's shoot through these quickly. Thursday night, you got the Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, although they held on against the New England Patriots on Sunday, they did not look very impressive. That high scoring offense that we seen from last year wasn't there yesterday. And maybe we can give credit to, the mastermind that is Bill Belichick and to that New England defense for that. I don't want to take credit away from them. There was a legit defense that they were playing. I believe the Patriots were second in the league in total sacks last year. So that was a legit defense they were playing. But I think coming off of that, now going against a team who doesn't have the best defense, going against a team who, if I'm not mistaken, they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I think thought would be a cellar dweller this year, to Baker Mayfield. They lost 2017, I believe, to them. Now they got to go to Philly. I'm going with Philly this game. I think Philly is really going to clean some things up. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win by 2 scores. So going with Philly in the Thursday night game. All right, we got my Bears going to Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. Oh, man. I didn't even want to speak on my Bears when I talked about most disappointing performances because, that second half of that game against the Green Bay Packers, who, FYI, shout out to Jordan Love. Jordan Love, I'm not going to say he's a superstar, but I think the Packers are going to be okay. I think they're going to be okay. But considering the effort that my Bears gave in that second half against the Packers, now going up against a team who picked up a surprising victory last week in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, I'll admit this may be a heart over head pick. This may be a heart over head pick because I am a homer. I hope that my Bears come out with a more concerted effort as a team, come out and play with more heart, play smarter. I hope that the offense kind of picks it up a little bit. I hope that we get DJ Moore more than 2 touches. And I hope that we can go in there and win this game. So reluctantly, heart over head pick here. I'm going to go with my Chicago Bears. Y'all pray for me. All right. Said Green Bay Packers going to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Both these teams won in week 1. Atlanta with a pretty impressive victory. Bijan Robinson looked pretty good in their victory. I think that this game is going to be kind of back and forth. I think it'll be a little more competitive than, you may think at first glance. But ultimately, I think the Packers are going to pull it out. And I think it'll be like a field goal game. I can see them winning by a field goal, maybe a last-second field goal. But lo and behold, with all the questions, I think Jordan Love and these Packers go to 2-0. Las Vegas Raiders at the Buffalo Bills. We don't got to spend too long on that one. Win or lose tonight, I think Buffalo rolls over Las Vegas next week. So, that's Buffalo. Interesting game here. First meeting of the season between division rivals. Baltimore Ravens going to the Cincinnati Bengals. Baltimore did win last week. Wasn't their best effort. Had a few things to clean up. And a couple huge injuries. Probably the biggest of which is the injury to J.K. Dobbins, who it looks like he might be out for the rest of the season. I feel kind of bad for the guy. I mean, he really just can't win for losing. It just always seems to be something. Ultimately, though, I mean, if there's any team that's been dealing with injuries off and on for years now, it's been the Baltimore Ravens. But they continue to chug along. As long as Lamar Jackson is healthy, I think they're still, a playoff team. They'll next man up at running back. I guess I just think for this game, I think that coming off of that effort last week at home, I think the Bengals are just going to give just an all-out effort. So I think it'll be close, but I think the Bengals maybe pull it out at the end. In the end, they win by a touchdown. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati. Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions with a really great total team effort against the Kansas City Chiefs opening Thursday night in their victory. Shout out to them. Now you got the Seattle Seahawks coming in after losing a game that they probably should have won, coming out with a piss poor effort against a team that we all assumed they were better than in their division. Now they're going against this Detroit Lions team who is for real. Aiden Hutchinson, number 1 pick last year. He is number 2 pick last year. Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end. Anyway, he is for real. He's for real. Kid is coming. This Detroit Lions defense, it's coming. Jared Goff, you give him time, he will cut you up. Point blank, period. And you know, they really take on, I feel like they take on the personality of their head coach, and what a wonderful head coach he's turned out to be in one Dan Campbell. And don't look now, but I think Seattle goes to 0-2. I'm going to have to take the Detroit Lions in this one. In a tough one, though. Chargers at Titans. Both of these teams 0-1. I think the Chargers kind of come in and clean some things up. I think you might see the best defensive game of the season from the Chargers defense against this Tennessee Titan team. So, yeah, I know the game's in Tennessee, but I'm going with Chargers. I'm going to go Chargers big here. I think they win by maybe 2 scores. So I'm going to go with the Chargers in that one. Chiefs at Jaguars. Kansas City Chiefs at Jacksonville Jaguars. So for those who haven't noticed, apparently, I think maybe about an hour or so ago, Kansas City did re-sign Chris Jones. So after missing a game last week, he'll probably get back in the practice, and I would assume be ready to go for this game. So that's a great sign for them. It's no way that the Chiefs can come out with that same effort offensively. We've seen a lot of drop passes. I know Thursday night people were all over Kadarius Toney. How soon people forget that if it wasn't for Kadarius Toney's kickoff return last year in the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter, I think he didn't take it all the way back. He got to maybe about the 8 or 9 yard line. But if not for that kickoff return, Kansas City possibly could have lost that game. That being said, I think these receivers get it together. I think they get into practice and they turn some things around. Hopefully they get Travis Kelce back for this game with the extra rest, with the extra days. And I think the Chiefs pull this one out. And a tough one. The Jags are going to be game. The Jaguars will be game. This might be a high-scoring affair. But I think ultimately Patrick Mahomes just makes that extra play or two that we know him to make. And I think Kansas City comes out on top. Colts at Texans in a matchup of 2 of the rookie quarterbacks in this league, Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud. I'm not going to hold you too long on this one. This is I'm not going to hold you too long on this one. But I'm going to take the Colts. I think Anthony Richardson has a pretty solid game. I think you see him, throw a touchdown or 2 and make some plays with his legs, keep some drives alive. And, I'm going to go with the Colts. 49ers at Rams. The Rams, once again, with an impressive victory. I think this game may be close going into halftime. These are division rivals. So, anything's possible. I think this game may be close going into halftime. I think coming out in the second half, I think the 49ers will kind of impose their will. You might see them getting C-Mac going out the backfield. And I think they'll pull away in the second half. So I'm going to go with 49ers 10, 12-point win. I think the scoreboard may not actually show how competitive of a game that may be. But I'm going to go with the 49ers to go to 2-0. New York Giants at the Arizona Cardinals. The Giants can't possibly look any worse than they did last night. They're going against a team who should, for all intents and purposes, considering some of the things that they did in this offseason, for all intents and purposes, they're going against a team who has to be tanking. The Giants are 4-point favorites in this game on the road, but I think there's going to be another ugly game, honestly. I do. But ultimately, I think the Giants will come out on top. I think you'll see a better effort from Saquon Barkley. I think you'll see them find a little more success getting Darren Waller involved. And I think the Giants will come out on top. Interesting game right here. And we'll see the outcome of their game tonight. But next week, New York Jets going to the Dallas Cowboys. Another one of my apprehensions about the New York Jets this season, one was the offensive line. Two was their first 6 or 7 games. And I mean this in all sincerity. If you don't believe me, go look at their schedule. They could very tangibly lose 4 or 5 of their first 6 or 7 games. Like, I mean, to start this season, they have a really tough schedule. And they got Buffalo tonight, and then they come right back and they got to go to Dallas, especially seeing that defense and that pass rush that we just seen last night against the New York Giants, matching up with this offensive line that we have some questions about. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to do it. Cowboys go to 2-0 in a close one because, Aaron Rodgers is always, especially when they're playing the Cowboys, he'll pull a rabbit out of hat. But I think they really get after him. I think they'll make him uncomfortable. Don't be surprised if the Cowboys end up with 5 or 6 sacks in this game. And although the Jets have a formidable defense themselves, you may be looking at a low-scoring affair, but ultimately I think the Cowboys win this one and go to 2-0. Washington Commanders at the Denver Broncos. Washington Commanders at the Denver Broncos. I'm going to call this the mid bowl, okay? 2 mid teams. The Commanders did squeak out a victory yesterday against the Cardinals, I believe. Close one. Verdict still out on Sam Howell. Obviously, he does have some weapons. Chase Young, I believe, missed the game yesterday. Could possibly be back for this game against the Denver Broncos team that I talked about. Still kind of looked very similar to the way they looked last year. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos in this game. I think Sean Payton gets these guys ready to go. I think you see a better effort from the Denver Broncos. I think that you'll see Sean Payton kind of, loose the chains. I hope that you'll see him kind of loose the chains on Russell Wilson a little bit. I think you'll see him kind of moving and you'll see him kind of get out of the pocket and attempt to make some things happen. Maybe he'll get him on the move to make some throws. They once again, they'll probably still be without Jerry Jeudy. And that Washington Commanders pass rush, that front four is something else. I'm about to talk myself out of my own pick, but I'm going to leave it alone. Denver Broncos with the victory. All right, another divisional matchup. Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. We talked about what the Dolphins did to the LA Chargers and that offense. New England Patriots, although they lost, really good effort. I believe Mac Jones threw for over 300 yards. Really good effort against the Philadelphia Eagles. Came up a little short. I think that you'll see Bill Belichick really come up with some sort of way to kind of slow this Miami Dolphin team down a little bit. I think that you won't see those same numbers from Tyreek Hill, from Tua. I think you'll see a much more conservative game. And I think that's the respect that I have for Bill Belichick and the offense. And the defense, that the scheme that he'll put forth. So I guess I just simply think the Dolphins are a better team. I think they have the better players in some of the important skill positions. And I think maybe Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, I think that they just make that one extra play that I feel like no one on the New England Patriots can quite make. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins in a really close game. I'll say maybe a 24-16 type of game. but I'm gonna go with the Dolphins. 2 Monday night games. So y'all keep that in mind for next Monday. 2 Monday night games next week. Saints at the Panthers. Obviously Panthers with the number 1 pick from this past season. Bryce Young. New Orleans Saints, they did pick up a victory in week 1. We know they picked up Derek Carr and everything, so they're moving forward. I picked them to win that division. And I don't think the train stops here. I think they're another team with a really solid defense. And I think that they kind of take advantage of a young, learning, growing quarterback. And I think New Orleans picks up the victory here. And last but not least, we got the Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cleveland Browns, once again, with a pretty surprising victory against the Cincinnati Bengals. Steelers with a pretty disappointing loss. Not that they lost, but the manner in which they lost to the San Francisco 49ers. And all of a sudden, this game has gotten a lot more interesting. I expect the Steelers to come out with a much better effort. Therefore, I expect this to be a very, very ugly game. And I mean ugly. I think both defenses are really good. I think the Browns defense is very, very underrated. I think that Deshaun Watson will struggle. But ultimately, I think they have Mr. Steady carrying the football. One of the best running backs in the league in Nick Chubb, who went over 100 yards yesterday. And I think he might get 27 to 30 touches. And they're just going to pound away. And this is going to be a very, very nasty game. If you're into, hard-nosed defensive struggles, I think this will be that. But I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. And, I mean, this will probably be I wouldn't be surprised if you see a 14-10 game, something like that, 14-9, something like that. I think this will be an ugly game, but nonetheless, Pittsburgh Steelers get the win. And there you have it, guys. Another wonderful, wonderful episode of the Rooted in Sports podcast. Once again, guys, so we're coming at you every other week now. So you won't see us next Monday, but you'll see us September 18th. Once again. No, excuse me. September 25th. Excuse me. You won't see us next Monday, the 18th. You'll see us September 25th will be the next time you see us. And once again, the NFL season will be in full effect. We'll be, I think, just coming off of week 3 then. And so, yeah, we're going to be all over that. Obviously, King Tiberius will be back. And, we're going to do the damn thing, man. As always, thanks to everyone who looked on and joined in with me. Thanks to everyone who's going to go back and watch this here episode. Give us a follow on Instagram at Rooted in Sports. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can get all our content and go back and watch some of the previous videos. Once again, that's just simply at Rooted in Sports on YouTube. So go ahead, like and subscribe. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Sports Exclusive podcast with my boy King Tiberius. Just so you guys know, he's been hard at work filming episodes. As you all seen from season 1, I mean, he comes up with phenomenal content and from a variety of sports, you know what I'm saying? From Muay Thai to, I mean, you lacrosse, you name it, man. He's covering it all. He's touching all aspects. I know that was a goal of his. So you guys definitely go ahead and subscribe to that again. Once again, that's the Sports Exclusive podcast. Yeah, and I think that's it, man. Football is back. The NFL is back. I think we're all extremely happy and overjoyed about it. I'm actually going to probably go and check out this here game between the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills now. And yeah, you guys tune in to week 2. And also be on the lookout because we're gonna get some college football content in. I'm really anxious to talk about the Colorado Buffaloes with one Deion Sanders, 2-0. Really anxious to talk about them. Um, I want to talk about Alabama, who just took a loss to Texas on Saturday. So be on the lookout because we're going to hit y'all with a little bit of college football content as well. So once again, this is just a phenomenal time of year. Football all weekend, Saturday college football, Sunday NFL. So yeah, just hey guys, tune in because we're gonna hit y'all with the content, man. And yeah, that's it, man. So as always, much love, God bless, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks, September 25th. We'll be right back here, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Love you guys. God bless. Catch y'all soon.